So, Wimbledon, day one, was quite the doozy. I'm a bit late, obviously, to do a full draw breakdown, but honestly, I'm feeling a bit lazy to do a full one anyways, but day one was quite eventful. There was a lot of buzz around. It's our first Wimbledon in 2 years. It was really cool. So I'm just going to give my thoughts on this draw and how I saw this tournament unfolding. Obviously, one of the biggest stories of day one was one of my semi-finalists crashing out in the first round. Obviously, Stefanos Tsitsipas losing quite routinely to have inspired Frances Tiafoe in the opening round in straight sets. Now, I knew of Steph's pedigree on grass not being all that great, but I just trusted his progress in 2021. I trusted the strides that he's made this year, and I thought that it would carry over to the grass. I did take into account that it might be hard to turn around, especially in this shortened break between the French Open and Wimbledon, especially considering the mental toil that it must have had on Tsitsipas losing the final the way he did. And in retrospect, I think it's a bit foolish that I did have him going to the semifinals. His draw was relatively open if he had been able to make it past this opening round test in Tiafoe. But obviously, watching today, he clearly was not ready. He was totally out of sorts, and I don't care what the stats say. They say that he played a decent match, but I know what I watched, and he looked terrible. Straight up, he looked awful. Coincidentally enough, the one set that he lost by a double break in the third was probably the best that he played all match. He was actually getting into Tiafoe's service games throughout that set, but couldn't get the break. And at the end of the day, he crashed out pretty routinely. On the flip side, I do want to talk a bit about Frances Tiafoe. I was a big believer in him as early as 2018. I watched him throughout his Delray Beach run that year. It was one of the more impressive 250 runs you'll see. He beat Shapovalov, he beat Del Potro, he beat Hyun Chung, which was a really good win back then, especially in early 2018, believe it or not, if you weren't there to see it. And then the next year, he made the quarterfinals of the Aussie Open, beating Grigor Dimitrov. And really, ever since that quarterfinal run, Tiafoe's kind of lost his way and stagnated just a bit. In fact, his results since would probably tell you that he's regressed, but there were good signs earlier this year when he played a really good match against Djokovic in the second round of Australia. It was a tight four-setter, but Big Foe, as we call him, looked to be on the uptick earlier this year. But until today, really, the results wouldn't indicate that since that Aussie Open. But with a win like today, who knows, maybe it can be a turning point. It's his first top 5 win of his career, and you certainly hope it jumpstarts something for him. In my opinion, he has probably, aside from Sebastian Korda, by far the biggest upside and the best talent of our current American crop of players. And Tiafoe's still relatively young. There's still plenty of time to totally fulfill his talent, and wins like these, I'm sure, will go a long way in helping his confidence and getting him on the right track again. You know, today that upside was on full display for all to see on tennis's biggest stage at Wimbledon and the second biggest show court there on court number 1. As bad as I thought Tsitsipas was, Tiafoe was equally brilliant on the other side of the net and really played as close to flawlessly as he can. He really didn't let Tsitsipas into his serve games for the most part until the third set, and even then he wasn't blinking when things got tight. Francis has been prone to these mental lapses throughout his career, but he certainly handled the pressure moments fantastically today, and the draw is pretty wide open in that quarter, in the Tsitsipas quarter. So I hope that he can take advantage of this relatively open quarter in what was the Tsitsipas quarter. It's already a successful tournament for him, but I hope that he isn't content with just this win and can make it into something even more. Now, for the other biggest story on the men's side, it also happened in the Tsitsipas quarter today, with Andy Murray making his return to Wimbledon, his first match there in singles since that fateful loss to Sam Querrey in the quarters in 2017 that really brought about a new chapter in Murray's career, and unfortunately for him, that chapter being injury riddled and really forcing him to contemplate if he could play again. We're all very happy to see him still playing, and with his hip resurfacing, being able to be free of that chronic pain. Still not totally pain-free, obviously, but not as bad as it was in 2017, 2018, early 2019. But that being said, after all of that, it was heartwarming to see him back at his home slam on his turf, where he's created so much history. Obviously, most noteworthy ending the drought of British men winning Wimbledon, among many other signature moments in his career. Obviously, this venue has been the most special for him throughout, and seeing him welcomed so warmly by the crowd and seeing them spur him on throughout his opening round match today against Nicolas Basilashvili. As far as the match itself, obviously that third set was unlike anything any of us have ever seen, really. From 3 breaks up, 5-zip, Murray dropped 7 games in a row. Looked like he'd be in the locker room in a hurry and be headed to the second round. Pretty straightforward in straight sets, but he reset well in the fourth and got there in the end. Which brings me to my biggest takeaway from that match. You saw a bit of this in Queens too, but Murray can still probe as well as anybody on the grass. He still has so much variety. He's underratedly great at net. His slices, which were off throughout this match against Basilashvili, but his slices are terrific, both on the forehand and backhand. And he can just probe so well on top of his world-class returning on grass with all those different tools. If you're not somebody that has just supreme power and weapons like a big serve and big forehand like Berrettini, as we saw in the loss that Murray took in Queens, I do think that Andy can still provide a lot of challenges just on the back of his variety on this surface. So now with Stefanos Tsitsipas the favorite in that quarter out, you look through the draw and there's really nobody there aside from maybe Shapovalov if he redlines that can just hit Murray off the court and take advantage of his lesser movement now post hip surgery. It's all going to depend on how Murray's body responds, and certainly adding an extra hour onto his match today wouldn't have helped as far as recovery. But if he can continually put himself back together after matches like these, and credit to him, honestly, the fact that he had Basilashvili down that much, it's another testament to what he can do with his variety on the surface, as well as all the other factors like crowd support behind him, the good feelings he's had from the past here. He said it himself, and he's made it clear from the beginning of this year that he thinks he can still beat the best players in the world and hang with them. I believe his quote after today was, "He's number 28 in the world. I've barely played any matches and I was able to beat him." And just looking ahead, his draw doesn't make it unfeasible to see Murray making the semis here, which is unbelievable. I don't want to get my hopes up for that because that would be such a cool story, but that's not impossible. Now, remaining in that top half, there's obviously not much to say about the Djokovic quarter. He got a very nice draw and it only got nicer after today. A lot of the same reasons why I thought Rafa would do well this Wimbledon if he played. As I said in my earlier video about what's next for him, is also a lot of the reason of why Djokovic is an overwhelming favorite here, and that would have been the case with or without Nadal in the draw, don't get me wrong, but these young guys struggling most on grass certainly contributes to that. And then actually out on court, you have Novak Djokovic serving 20 plus aces, and this isn't an aberration. This is, I believe, his third match just this year of serving 20 plus aces this year. I had my reservations about if Djokovic in this post-prime phase of his career was serving better than ever, because 2015, 2016 under Becker, he also was serving terrific. But this year, he's really taken it up a notch, especially on the quicker surfaces, and Wimbledon, you know, is going to reward great serving, and Djokovic has certainly become that, a great server. Just adding on to the embarrassment of riches that are the assets that this man possesses on a tennis court. And did he play great today? No, he didn't. He served out of this world, but he did look like a guy that hadn't played in 2 years, that was coming off a taxing slam run just 2 weeks ago. Now, that's not concerning though, because honestly, he can still win this tournament like that. If you want my discourse about this tournament, I think that Djokovic is the overwhelming favorite, like everybody else, deservedly so. And I just find it very, very unlikely that we're going to see anybody else lifting up this trophy in 2 weeks. I said before, the young guys haven't figured out grass yet. Federer is a year older. He's almost 40. He's been struggling with form all year. And yeah, there's not much to be said. Novak, I feel, is a pretty safe bet to win this title. He's got a very nice draw on top of that. I mean, with what we're left now with Sinner and Tsitsipas going out today, Rublev is probably going to be the most pushback he gets on his way to a final here. And I don't really think Tsitsipas or Sinner was going to do him any damage anyways, and I don't think Rublev probably will. A big server on fire like Querrey in Wimbledon 2016, or Anderson, who had him on the ropes at Wimbledon 2015, was probably as dangerous as it was gonna get at Djokovic, just with Wimbledon rewarding big serving like that. And he does have Anderson again in the second round, coincidentally enough. But the injury bug has really taken Kevin down a peg, a couple of pegs, honestly. And yeah, just hard to see any danger for Novak whatsoever, at least until the final. Now I'm going to be quicker with the bottom half. Not as much to say because we haven't seen them play yet. They'll be on tomorrow. I see Berrettini getting out of that third quarter. Matteo's really made me believe more this year in him than I have in the past. And as early as 2019, Berrettini was impressing on grass. He's probably the most comfortable of the younger guys at this point on grass. He's fresh off a win in Queens, won the title there. I believe he won Stuttgart in 2019 and made the fourth round before absolutely being dismantled by Roger Federer. But he's a much better player now, and I was very impressed with his French Open run. Obviously, Djokovic outclassed him for 2 sets, but he went toe-to-toe with an excellent version of Djokovic on clay at the French Open there. And with the explosive power that he possesses, I think that he could potentially do better at Wimbledon, even better than that. Everyone knows that the biggest weakness there is still the backhand, but he has improved tremendously this year. And with how potent his combination of his serve and forehand is, I just really like that to translate to grass this year, especially with the form he's in. And I'm pretty confident with that pick. There's a lot of guys in this quarter who have done well on grass recently or in the past. Obviously, Humbert, who is having another great grass court season, who can play on grass, made the fourth round in 2019. Isner, who made the semis in 2018. Even Nishikori has made quarters at his last 2 Wimbledons. I don't anticipate that happening again, but just putting that out there. FAA, who's become a bit of an afterthought, but is one of the rare young players whose best surface is grass, had another strong showing in what was a very brief grass season this year. And then the highest seed in this quarter in Sasha, who hasn't thrived here, but he has been excellent at the majors since the beginning of last year and is in drastically better form than he was when he last played here, so it'll be interesting to see what he can do with his big serve. But I do like Berrettini in this quarter. And lastly, there's the Roger Federer quarter in the bottom half. Now, for where Roger Federer is seated and how he's struggled for form this year, this is a very good draw for him, honestly, in my opinion. The way I see it, to put it bluntly, if he plays decently, he should make the semis with relative ease. The issue is that given what we've seen from Federer this year, that decent level match to match is not a given. But that being said, I still find it hard to see him not making the quarters here with the draw he's been given. Cam Norrie maybe could put up a fight with how good he's been this year, how solid he's been. But I just don't think he has the weapons to take out Federer, even a lesser Federer this year. Daniil Medvedev is a bit of a wild card here. His grass record, I don't think, does him justice on how good he could be. I thought at the beginning of the year that Daniil Medvedev would surprise a lot of people at Wimbledon. He's never really gotten the chance to play this tournament as an elite player. He broke out here in 2017 and has had a couple decent results on grass, outside of Wimbledon at least. But again, with how accurate a server he is and how low his ground strokes stay with how flat he hits the ball, I definitely think there's a scope for Medvedev to do really well here. He does have a couple roadblocks along the way. He has Struff straight off the bat, which is pretty dangerous. And then down the road, he could get Cilic, who's had a little bounce back in this grass court season, but the same way he problem solved his way through the French, I think he can do the same at Wimbledon. I'm tentatively gonna say he makes the quarter, but with Roger Federer being who he is at Wimbledon, I'm just gonna close my eyes and give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he's gonna make the semis out of this quarter. Initially, I had Djokovic Tsitsipas in my semis, but after today, I don't even know who's coming out of that Tsitsipas quarter anymore. Like, that is so up for grabs for anybody. I don't trust Shapovalov's consistency enough to pick him. He could definitely do it. There's so many question marks with Murray's fitness. I don't even know, man. Opelka also lost today, a big server who could have been dangerous here, at least theoretically, but clearly not given the result today. Yeah, this one, I'm really just gonna close my eyes now and say that it's gonna be Djokovic RBA for the second straight Wimbledon in the semis. I'm not at all confident in that. I wasn't confident in Djokovic Tsitsipas happening to begin with. But yeah, that quarter, you're just playing for whoever gets the privilege to lose to Djokovic in the semis. In my other projected semi, I'm actually going to go with Matteo Berrettini over Roger Federer. I think this is going to be a bit like 2016 for Roger, where he didn't play much and was searching for form all year, scrapped his way into the semis, but just wasn't in good enough form to get over the hump. And on the flip side, after his French Open run and clay season, as well as continued great play on grass this year, I think that Berrettini has what it takes to make a slam final this year itself and make that leap. But ultimately, you knew what this was going to come down to, and that was Novak Djokovic taking out his third slam of the year and 20th overall to equal the record. And I'd like him over whoever comes out, but I think it'll be Berrettini, and I'll say that it'll be an even tighter four-setter than it was in Paris. But of course, I am rolling with Novak. Anyways, if day one was anything to go off of, we are in for a hell of a fortnight. It's great to have Wimbledon back after 2 years, and I hope that the rest of this tournament can live up to the fireworks of day one. That'll do it for me though, of course. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button and subscribe if you're not already. I hope you enjoyed the video. I appreciate y'all for watching, and I will see y'all in the next one.